Tennessee Titans fans, and maybe even Jacksonville Jaguars fans, if you happen to be watching this, Dan Orlovsky has a suggestion today. And I got to say, I appreciate Dan-O. I actually think he's one of my favorite analysts out there, honestly. But this suggestion that he's got today is one that has left me befuddled. I had to go to X for this one. This is Dan-O suggesting that the Tennessee Titans should make a trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's just listen, as this is from First Take.
Okay.
If I were the Titans, I would call the Jacksonville Jaguars and try to trade for Trevor Lawrence. And if I was Trevor Lawrence, I would want the absolute heck out of Jacksonville.
I don't have no problem with that.
Let's let it sink in. Let's let it marinate. Let's let it simmer for a second. The Tennessee Titans should try to trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars to send Trevor Lawrence to Nashville. Now, granted, this aired this morning. Since then, some things have changed in Jacksonville. The narrative was they fired their GM too late. They missed out on the head coaches they want. But now they're getting a second chance with Liam Cohen, who appears to be ditching Tampa Bay to come to Jacksonville after all. So granted, this was before all of that. Maybe Dan-O would change his mind now that, Liam Cohen appears to be the next head coach. But, I mean, this is just an absurd suggestion. Like, somebody's going to call me dumb for asking, but has a division team ever traded their franchise quarterback to another division team? Like, I can't imagine the Chargers trading Justin Herbert to the Raiders. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just can't even imagine. Not to mention Trevor Lawrence's contract. How's that going to work out in all of this? Let's keep going.
I would want the absolute heck out of the mess that is the
My
Jacksonville
challenge to
Jaguars
you, though,
right now.
Dan, here's my problem with that, Dan. Be reasonable. I'm going to trade my quarterback within the division.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're Jacksonville, first of all, if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I am spurring this. Like, if I want out of Jacksonville. And if you're Tennessee, realistically, we're sitting here and we're trying to get all this rebuild, and I would be someone to tell you, I think Tennessee's got a decent football roster. Better than the first pick worthy type roster.
Look at Cam's face. Look at Cam Newton's face as he listens to Dan-O say all this. I will say, even though the Tennessee Titans roster is not superb, obviously, if you looked at their roster, you would not think this is the worst team in the league. Like, if you looked at just the Titans roster and who they have currently, you would not look at that roster and think that's a number one draft pick right there. Like, there are other rosters, like the Giants have a worse roster than the Titans, I think. I think you could argue the Jaguars have a worse roster than the Titans currently. I think you could argue the Browns have a worse roster. Excuse me, the Raiders have a worse roster. I mean, there are other teams that have a worse roster. So I guess he's trying to say the Titans would be a better situation for Trevor Lawrence because of Ridley, because of Pollard, because of Jeff Simmons and some of these guys. But I kind of feel like Cam does about it. I'm just like,
Shador, and I haven't studied Shador and Cam well enough to make a definitive statement on where exactly I think they might be or whatnot. And Travis Hunter's special, you don't matter in that conference unless you get a quarterback. As special as Travis Hunter is,
you don't matter in the sport. You don't matter in the sport.
So, and you got to rebuild Trevor Lawrence's mindset and his psyche and his confidence. But if I'm Tennessee and I'm looking at it all, I'm calling Jacksonville and saying, okay, because you don't know what's going on in Jacksonville. It's a mess right now.
I would have loved to have heard Cam Newton's thoughts, because judging by the look on his face, he had some things going through his mind. Listen. I do agree with Dano that, especially in the AFC, you do not matter if you don't have a quarterback, because the AFC is where Mahomes is. The AFC is where Josh Allen is. The AFC is where Joe Burrow is. The AFC is where Lamar Jackson is. The AFC is where CJ Stroud is. The AFC, that may be it. I don't know. I'd have to think through the other teams. Drake May, potentially, if you think he's going to be something, that's where Drake May is. You know, there are most of the elite quarterbacks in this league are in the AFC. If Jalen Hurts were in the AFC, he wouldn't even crack the top 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks in the conference. So Dano is right, and Stephen A. Smith, going off of that, said, you don't matter in this league. And watching the way the Vikings performed with Sam Darnold in the playoffs, even Jared Goff with the Lions, like, yeah, you at the end of the day, 3 of the 4 quarterbacks that are left in the playoffs right now are dudes. Mahomes, Allen, and Jaden Daniels. So they're right. But first of all, I just don't even see Trevor Lawrence on that level as those guys. God bless him. I'm sure he's a great guy. I know he's not in the best situation in Jacksonville, but I don't even see Trevor, like, you put him on the Titans, you put him on the Jaguars, you put him wherever. I just don't see Trevor in that way. I still don't know what he has shown thus far in his NFL career that even points to him being that guy. And so for that matter, if you're the Titans and you get to the draft and you like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, like, I think you're better off taking a chance with one of those 2 guys than trading for Trevor Lawrence. And Stephen A. Smith had one of the better points there, which is, why would you trade your quarterback to a division opponent? That's just unheard of. So I think, like, that to me is just not the answer. I mean, Trevor's a decent quarterback, but he definitely ain't great. Most of the time, you could argue he's not even good. I know that sounds harsh, but, you know, some of it, does it have to do with the situation he's in? Maybe, you know, if he sticks around. And they didn't even mention Trevor's contract. He just signed a massive contract with the Jaguars last offseason. So how does that work out in this scenario? I don't know. But I ain't taking that contract. I don't want the Tennessee Titans taking on that contract. You kidding me? So I don't know. I think this was a pretty absurd suggestion by Dano. And judging by the look on Cam Newton's face, he agrees that this is an absurd. And keep in mind, Dano said he hasn't even really studied up on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. So he's not even, I don't know. I think I like Dano, but that's nonsense. Tighten up, everybody.